Debugging Python. Your IDE is a powerful tool. Its ability to detect mistakes and alert you to their location is amazing. This makes coding much easier. No programmer is expected to write code that has no mistakes the first go-around. That would be unreasonable. However, programmers are expected to be able to use their IDE to help them quickly find and correct errors. We will review a few types of errors before getting into more involved programs, such as syntax, logic, compile time, round-off, overflow, and runtime errors that can occur in programming. We'll use the example Python code below as a reference. A syntax error is caused when code is missing a critical symbol, letter, case, or piece of information that would prevent the code from executing. This can sometimes be referred to as a compile time error, as a compiler can catch missing syntax. We see an example of a syntax error on the circled line of code. When assigning values to a variable, a single equal sign should be used. A logic error occurs when the programmer fails to consider a scenario or uses incorrect ordering of the code that causes a bug in the program where the correct result will not output, but the program will still execute. The formula that is used to calculate the temperature in Celsius is correct except for one thing. The logic error is created because the parentheses surround 5 divided by 9 when there should be parentheses around Fahrenheit minus 32. A runtime error occurs after a program compiles and attempts to execute. Although the program does not contain any syntax errors, during runtime, if it asks the computer to do something that it is not capable of doing, a runtime error will output. Even though there aren't any syntax errors, dividing by 0 is a calculation that is impossible for the computer or anyone to evaluate. This results in a runtime error output. An overflow error is an error that occurs when too much information tries to be stored in the wrong type of variable. An example of this would be attempting to store a value that is longer than 2 to the 32nd power minus 1 in an integer variable. A round-off error occurs when a number has been rounded and then used in a calculation. This provides an incorrect result. This sometimes occurs when the mathematical value pi is rounded and used repeatedly in calculations that may result in an incorrect answer. On the next slides, let's make some common errors and see what the Replit IDE says. When we say debugging while programming, we refer to finding bugs or errors in our programs that need to be fixed. There are a few common and effective practices that are used to debug programs. Some of these practices are using test cases to see if the program runs as expected, tracing the code by hand to determine output, visualizing how the code should run, using a debugger to assist, and adding extra output statements to evaluate how the program runs at different places before the final output. Let's take a look at how to use these methods to debug Python code. If there is a bug in your code, it will show up in the black box. The IDE shows me exactly where the error is, line 1. The little arrow here points to the error, and it suggests a correction. Syntax error. Missing parentheses in call to print. Did you mean print hello world with parentheses? This is incredibly useful information. What if we forget the quotes around a string? Here it says invalid syntax, and the arrow points to hello world. Here I saved hello world into X. However, I then try and print Y, a variable that has not been initialized. Therefore, it says the error is on line 3, and name error, name Y is not defined. The error messages become extremely useful as your programs get longer and more complicated.